Hello and welcome to WPFW's youth-run radio show, ZDC, as we unpack art, culture, and politics, both local and worldwide, from a teen's perspective. Join us. I am Johanna Sudabo. I'm a senior attending Washington Waldorf School.
I'm Sophie, a senior attending Washington Waldorf School.
I'm Arina, also a senior at Washington Waldorf School.
I'm Ron Bailey, a senior at Bell Multicultural High School.
I'm Anaya, a senior at Woodrow Wilson High School.
So ZDC will have 3 segments. We are going to open with an interview to explain our topic of cultural competency. Sophie Burchell spoke with Nicole Cutts on this topic. For our second segment, we will be discussing cultural appropriation. Please feel free to join our conversation by calling 202-588-0893, or you can tweet us at ZDC-WPFW. The final segment deals with pop culture, and today we pay tribute to Nipsey Hussle. Let me pass the discussion on to Sophie Burchell. So what did you discuss?
Who knows a lot on the topic. Some of the ZDC crew knows her from when she talked to our school about gender relations and expression. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist with an emphasis on building multicultural community and works to empower people to achieve a more balanced and successful lifestyle. So, Dr. Cutts, how would you define cultural competency?
Well, first of all, Sophie, thanks for having me on the show. The way that cultural competence is defined when I teach it is it actually has 3 components, and those 3 components are awareness, knowledge, and skills. And the awareness piece refers to self-awareness mainly. You know, the first part of being culturally competent is that you have to examine yourself and become aware of any biases, prejudices that you might have, as well as values, as well as how you identify yourself and how you feel about certain facets of your identity. The second component, the knowledge component, has more to do with becoming knowledgeable about cultures and backgrounds that might be different than yours. So exposing yourself to have more of an understanding of other people's cultures and backgrounds is the knowledge part. You know, you can have that knowledge base, but none of that works without the skills part. Okay, so I'm as aware as I can be of my biases, prejudices, values, et cetera, and my identity. Then I become aware of yours or things that might be different from mine. But then the skills part is how do I interact with people who might be different from me in terms of any facet of their identity or their culture. So that's pretty much, you know, that encapsulates the definition, at least the one that I work with for cultural competence.
Thank you. And what would you say cultural competency looks like when put into practice, especially with younger generations such as Gen Z? Are those 3 elements different than with older generations when we use them every day?
No, I think those elements are still the basic building blocks. You know, you can go into more subtleties with each one of those components, but they're still the same basic building blocks. You know, you have to be self-aware, you know, have a high degree of emotional intelligence, especially in that area of your identity. You know, that's a really important piece, the self-awareness piece. I think that it's often left out of discussions around cultural competence, diversity, you know, any of those kind of discussions, it's often left out because people tend to think of like minority versus majority or us versus them, when to be culturally competent, you really have to look at yourself first and try to define for yourself what different aspects of your culture and your identity mean for you. So it's not about, you know, we're the majority sort of normal group, and then there are those other folks. Everybody has a culture. Everybody has an identity. And, you know, you need to start with looking at yourself first.
So this is definitely a complex topic and can frankly be hard to navigate. Can you give us an example of a time you were really just stuck, either a personal moment or something the public all witnessed?
A time that I was stuck personally, or that an example of somebody publicly being stuck?
Either one.
Well, I think, okay, well, here's a good one for myself. This was based on a lack of knowledge. I was teaching a leadership class at a federal government agency, and I had been told that I was going to have a student in the class who was hearing impaired, and that she would have people to do interpretation and some people typing notes for her and things like that. So when I got to the class, I spoke to the interpreters and the people who were, typing notes in their special, note-taking machine and things like that. And I asked them, what do I need to know to help facilitate their work and to best work with the student? And they told me that I needed to be sure to ask the other students in the class to speak up so that when they're doing the sign language interpretation for the student that, they would be able to do it accurately. So I made an announcement at the beginning of class saying that, we have a student in the class who's hearing impaired, and therefore, I really ask that everybody make sure that they speak up so that the sign language interpreters can do their job, blah, blah, blah. And at a break, the student who I was referring to came up to me and through her interpreter told me that she knew that I did not mean to be offensive, but that she didn't like the term hearing impaired, and that most people in the deaf community didn't like that term, and that the term that she preferred was either deaf or hard of hearing.
Huh, that's interesting.
What was missing for me was the knowledge part, and the not having knowledge meant that I did something that was unskilled, but then my skill came in terms of how I handled that. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't put off. I wasn't defensive. I just did, I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. And then I asked her, can you tell me a little bit of the thinking behind that? And she told me that they don't like hearing impaired because they equate it to like if she said, I wouldn't say that you're sign language impaired. So, I said, okay, it's good to know, so that's a time when I would say my lack of knowledge meant that I was at first unskilled, but then, now I have that knowledge. And, but it's also important, even when you have knowledge, not to necessarily generalize that to everybody, because, she's comes from a deaf community here in Washington, D.C. It's different in different parts of the country. So I guess the knowledge part would be to, yes, know that that's what this woman and maybe what most people in D.C. would think, but that doesn't mean that I can generalize that thinking to everybody.
Yeah, it seems like it's really important to take moments like that to learn and further your knowledge. It seems like through all this talk, sometimes it can scare people into sticking with their own from fear of messing up. How would you encourage people to engage in positive cultural exchange?
That's a really good question, Sophie. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is to develop your own emotional intelligence, especially having a high degree of self-awareness, as I mentioned before, but also self-management. One of the biggest blocks to people being able to be culturally competent is that they become defensive, they become angry, they don't listen, like what you were just saying. People have a tendency to not listen because when somebody gets defensive, your ability to influence them goes down. Mm-hmm. And people are, sort of, even though it might be masked as a discussion, it's really an argument. So I would say to everybody to really try to give people a chance to express their point of view, even if you don't agree with it, and to try to listen without defensiveness, because everybody has their own experience. And just because I haven't had your experience or don't interpret something the way you do is no reason for me to become defensive about it. It's just that's your experience, and somebody else is allowed to have a different experience. Somebody else is allowed to have a different perspective. So if you can really listen and give people a chance to talk, then you're also increasing the likelihood of them not becoming defensive so that you can actually have a dialogue where you are listening with curiosity, and so employing curiosity and some compassion. And the compassion comes in terms of just understanding where this person is coming from. I think it can go a long way to helping people to be more culturally competent.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Congratulations on your show.
Thank you. That was Dr. Nicole Cutts telling us about what cultural competency means in reference to her work. Up next, we'll be discussing what it means to us as a part of Generation Z. We'll be right back.
This one's for you. This one's for you. I think I made it. I think I made it. I think I made it, cause I'm always smiling and you're the reason now. Girl, I can't explain it. It's all in the timing. I had to get low, I had to get low. I had to get back. I had to report, I had to get facts, cause you were just that, you that. Girl, you share your truths with me, and I find them true. Amused, you in the booth with me. Can't spend time on a nickel and dime it. I got me a girl, she don't want no diamonds. A daily reminder to holler at God. Like, where did you find her? Good look at my everything around me, I took it. Did it with only the I knew. And a few I thought I knew better. Let go my I always do better. But you're more top echelon. My next probably be a step backwards. Front where they get struck with love like a drama mates be the best actors. I'm done with all that tough acting. John Madden would have saw it happen. And so it happens. My want life's good things, they still dreaming. And you deserve them too. I'ma do it just so it happens. I think I made it. I think I made it, cause I'm always smiling and you're the reason now. Girl, I can't explain it. It's all in the timing. I had to get low, I had to get low. I had to get back. I had to report, I had to get facts, cause you're just that, you that. You share your truths with me, and I find them true. Amused, you in the booth with me. La 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 la. This one's for you. La 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 la. This one's for you. La 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 la. I'm faded. Yeah. I'm faded. I'm faded. These been hating. I don't know the reason now. Sometimes I feel jaded. They don't see the real me, they only know code, they only know code. Oh, I had to get back. I had to resort to turning my back. I'm doing just that, true that. I thought he was through with me, but that wasn't true. The proof, you in the coop with me. God shuffled the cards, dealt me a hand with impossible odds. Put an obstacle course up, look, and I conquered them all. With minimal effort, I'm fresher than stuck in your jaw. They spinning my record so heavy, I'm popping the Forbes. Stuck in a rock in a hard place, though. Is it true what they say, the higher you go, the longer the fall? Well, I dropped to the floor, the knock at the door was on cue. I thought that I saw it all till I saw you. Now I call you when the sun shines and the rain dries up. I'm a pit bull, but for you, I be on chain tied up. In the backyard with a muzzle on, tail wagging like Oregon Trail, waiting on you to come through just like you do. Well, I think I made it. I think I made it, cause I'm always smiling and you're the reason now. Girl, I can't explain it. It's all in the timing. I had to get low, I had to get low. I had to get back. I had to report, I had to get facts, cause you're just that, you that. You share your truths with me, and I find them true. Amused, you in the booth with me. La 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 la. This one's for you. La 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 la. This one's for you. La 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 la. This one's for you. La 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 la. I think I made it. I think I made it. I think I made it. I think I made it, cause I'm always smiling and you're the reason now.
Hello and welcome back to WPFW. It is now 6:16 in the DMV. I wanted to bring back the topic of cultural competency and lead it into cultural appropriation. But first, I wanted to give the mic over to Anaya to make a small announcement.
Hi, this is Anaya. To everyone concerned, there's a rally, a go-go protest, and it's today at 6 o'clock. Bring your go-go collections, pictures, posters, everything in the words of Chuck Brown, the godfather of go-go. And 25 years in business, you know, Metro PCS on Georgia Avenue should not have to stop playing go-go. So go out and make sure you tweet hashtag Don't Mute DC and hashtag Soundproof DC. It's from 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I wanted to open the mic up to this discussion. Please feel free to call in at 202-588-0893 and join our conversation on cultural appropriation. So, Erina, what does cultural appropriation mean to you?
It's more like when in a culture, some people and some things are considered cool and beautiful, and others are considered not cool and beautiful. When people take things from the people not considered cool and beautiful and give them to people who are trendy, like that to me is what cultural appropriation is, especially in terms of cultures that are considered high class or the tip top of fashion. Right. Or anything like that. When people who are the underdogs in society, aspects of their culture or is glorified, but given to people who are considered worthy of these fashion, especially in fashion industry.
If they think that they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean that's prevalent in music, in fashion, in food as well. In products, hair products, especially. But what are some instances you think of when you think of cultural appropriation?
Let's open the topic up with some celebrities, honestly. So we all know the Kardashians. You know, how they represent themselves, how they present themselves, especially the first siblings born, you know, the older generation, the actual Kardashians. So many of them, they use tans and, you know, get these injections and all this to fit into a certain body type or to fit into a certain culture and they just use those parts of it and they glorify it.
I mean, I would also argue that Kylie Jenner, who isn't part of the original trio of Kardashians, is one of the biggest examples. I mean, one of the scandals recently with them was Kim Kardashian posting something on Instagram about Sunday service and wearing like Indian-inspired headgear. Like, I mean, it's usually there's been these in concerts and stuff, but this was like
it was like a costume.
Yeah, it was, but like high fashion
costume.
But it isn't just like one culture they appropriate, which usually it's a black culture. One? I mean, that was the one I was just saying with the Indian and
when I think more about what I was thinking about with the Kardashians was how they sometimes take black culture.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when it comes to, honestly, how they look, how they appeal to people when it comes to, you know, their bodies and also their faces and, you know, certain injections that they've gotten.
Their hair, especially.
Yeah, all of it.
And not only do the Kardashians, you know, make themselves look a certain way to fit in with certain cultures, they also take ideas from other cultures and take ideas from, you know, especially like ethnic black women, and they profit off of those. They take the ideas, know that they have fame. Yes, cornrows, all that. Even for their businesses, like Kylie Jenner and her makeup. They take ideas from women who aren't as famous, most of the time are ethnic or women of color, and they take the ideas and they profit off of them, which is another form of cultural appropriation.
Right. What's another form that you all see, Ron?
I think cultural appropriation, it stems past just like a direct thing we see in society every day, or rather, saying that in a better way, I feel like it's like so deeply integrated into our society with like music and that sort of thing, with like the underground hip hop scene of, I believe it was Memphis, sort of coming up, and then a lot of different areas in hip hop took elements from that and then made them bigger. And I feel like that sort of cycle just repeats itself within our society. So we see things that are undermined, and then it's sort of seen as an opportunity to make this like the new big cool thing, and it's turned into the point where it's like black branding in a way and marketing something as like this cool thing of black culture. And I feel like it's just so deeply rooted in our society at this
And
point.
someone really huge in pop at the moment is Ariana Grande, but that completely takes on like a persona. She has a performing persona that is not what she sounds like or who she is.
Even just you can see in the past years how much she's changed, and this is not in a bad way, because I've seen some great things that she's doing. She's standing up for women, you know, she's speaking out and all that, but the complexion of her skin has changed. This is just one example, but the complexion of her skin has changed in like the past 5 years, and she used to be white, and she's become more and more tan, and then now the products that she is using and the way she is beginning to speak, like her slang and all that, Arana.
She's tan until for a news spread or a magazine spread, it's like her pure and beautiful, and she's suddenly pale again. Wow. So
yeah,
it's like
exactly. We have a caller that we'd like to introduce to the air. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Mark, and I tuned in at the right time.
Yes, perfect.
I think I heard my daughter talk and be a part of this community of conscious people. And, you know, that's the way I live my life, is through the direction of my higher self, or the God in me. And that's what you all are doing. And so, as far as the topic of cultural appropriation, I didn't come in on the topic of the discussion. However, I came in on when I heard who I thought was my daughter, and perhaps if that is, anywho, she'll know. And I miss Ambrose Lane so much, as I see in the Spear. That's how long I followed PFW. Okay.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
As far as cultural appropriation, to me, it shouldn't be a dichotomy in the discussion, because we look at cultural appropriation. That means basically appropriate something is to designate or give something. So what you're giving is your culture, and you know, the one thing that you feel me? I'm sorry?
No, yes, keep going. Continue.
Oh, okay. And I could be totally off. However, we as black folks have always been trying to find our identity. And I think we've been looking too much on the physical, from the physical perspective, meaning how we look or what we do, what is defined. And as I see things happening now, especially with the millennials, I love them. I think they're awesome. Oh my God, gee, they're the greatest civilization since World War II. And I've only heard one other person come to that conclusion. And I happen to be listening to a late night program, and he was a Joint Chief of Staff who said that. But anywho, the closest you become from God, right? The closest you become from God, to God, the more you give out of love, and you don't worry about what someone says about it, because see, truth is not for the masses. And if I'm a grain of sand, and you're a grain of sand, and we both recognize it, as in the reflecting in the conversation I'm having right now, and I don't want to hog up the airtime, but anywho, that's what makes a beach.
Thank you.
When you have like-minded, conscious people that at some point we have a sacrifice to God, to who we are.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
All right, thank you so much. All right, peace.
And I think that part of it is definitely like, I mean, what we were talking about is what is respect versus what is appropriation. And
also, what the last caller said, which I agree with, is when he said, we, as black folks in America, we need to also find where we are, because, we never really had our own culture over here. We had to build that from the beginning. And on top of that, when it comes to school and our education, how much of our African culture is taught to us. Where do we connect? How do we find a way to connect to that? But yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for calling in, Anaya.
To piggyback off of what Johanna said, I do agree with that, because it's not necessarily that we never had our own culture over here, because we do. We have our own separate, culture that other cultures have been, taking from us. But I do agree on a certain level, because we were like Europeanized. We weren't. Yeah. We were
taught a completely different culture.
Exactly. We weren't rooted in the same place as our ancestors, which does make us different in our culture and the things we do. But I do think that we have our own culture, and it is being profited off of and appropriated.
Yeah, especially when it comes to rapping, when it comes to also fashion hair. Yeah, Ron.
And I think also sort of just like as a culture, I feel like African American culture, it doesn't have to be this thing where we're like, oh no, you're not allowed to do that, like you can't do this. But there's a respectful way to do something, and there's a not respectful way to do something. So what I see on TV when there's like a commercial for something completely unrelated, and then there's like what seems to be like a characterization of like a rap song in the background, it's sort of just like, it seems like this is being like simplified and used in a way where it benefits a company to make money rather than genuine respect. So I think sort of we have to establish the line of understanding what's like manipulation and exploitation of our culture and exploitation of what we've built up in this country since we came from nothing, being the backbone of this country. What we've sort of created an understanding, like the line between that.
Exactly, and with the exploitation, it's really the appropriation that you see in the society is that when people profit off of a visual of another culture, but that when it's in that original culture, it's considered not appropriate. It's not considered cool or.
It's reality.
It's reality, yeah. But it's like the exploitation is making money off of someone else's life that isn't considered. Like in that situation, it's not considered worthy enough. It's considered like.
Yeah. It's an advertisement they're using.
Or it can be the opposite and considered religious or holy, and taken out of that context, it is now considered just a petty thing that is taken. So it can go either way.
Right.
Like with, like just Coachella and using bindis for like Indian culture, that is considered more of a celebration of their religion rather than it is something that girls can put on their foreheads because they think it looks cool.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to take a break. Please call in the next segment. Oh, we'd like to take a caller actually really quickly before we go into break. Caller, welcome. You're on air.
Hello, thanks. I only have a quick comment because I have to go in a minute.
Yes.
And I completely am with you guys on the cultural appropriation aspect of things. My only issue is in terms of music. I think there are a lot of really great white musicians who take influences from black music like R&B, rap, and neo-soul, and definitely show respect for it and turn it into something of their own. And I think that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Erin.
I agree, except that when it's used and then it's not, and then in their lives they don't make a stand for the people that they are representing in their music.
That's important. I think as long as you know where it came from and you respect that, you show respect for that.
Exactly.
I think it's totally cool to use aspects of it because I think that can help the music evolve as well, right?
Ron?
Yeah, right. And also, I feel like there are people doing great things, but I think a perfect example of exploitation of it would be Miley Cyrus, who was in seemingly hip-hop culture and then claimed her exit because she didn't like the negativity of it when she, assumingly didn't have a full understanding of, the concept of what hip-hop comes from and what hip-hop actually means.
I'm sorry, I have to go right now. But
No, you're good. Thanks for
calling. Thanks for calling. Okay, we are going to go into our break. Please call in the next segment at 202-588-0893 or tweet us a question at ZDC WPFW. Thank you.
Northside Chamberlain throwback match my Rolex. Everywhere I go flex, valet park on some low ish. Whole lot of smoke in that Rory, that thing post. Burning rubber, wearing cameras, they was undercovers. Under pressure, made statements turned on their brothers. Never judge you, but the streets will never love you. I wonder what it come to in your brain for you to run to. Ones to hate us, handcuff us and mace us. Call us dumb, cause our culture is contagious. Third generation South Central gangbangers that live long enough to see it change. Think it's time we make arrangements. Finally wiggle out they maze. Find me out in different places. And the spoke by the door, this the infiltration. Double back dressed in blue laces. Killed Dr. Sebi, he was teaching health. Rick Ross, cause he teaching wealth. Dropped out of school, I'ma teach myself. Made my first meal on my own, I don't need your help. All black, Tom Ford, it's a special evening. City council meeting, they got hustle speaking. $1 billion project about to crack the semen. So one of our investments has become strategic. Summer 18, man, such a season. About to make my partners look like genius. We was in the Regal, it was me and Steve. We done took a dream and turned it to a scene. Anything I wanted, everything I needed. Gotta pace yourself, it's all about your baby. You can have it all, it's all about your race. I done took my name and carved it in the cement. I flash back on that shootout at the beach, 20 deep. You tried to squeeze, your gun jammed, and they released. Blood on your tape, how many stains? I see 3. Started to panic, so I made her switch seats. Driving there, police chopper here flying now. Really not too spooked, calmly ask me, am I dying now? All I know is keep you calm and collected. Cracking jokes like, now you gon' be finally respected. See your blood leaking, got my foot on this gas. Toss the 40, we pull up to Daniel Free and see crash. You know the alibi. They started shooting, we was standing by. Ain't see nothing but flare from the Talus fly. I wasn't there, I was passing by. Matter of fact, don't say this shit, I'm just gonna drop you in the back and slide. That's your weed, all the cash is mine. I take them both to the spot, plus your phone till you back online.
Hello and welcome back to WPFW. It is 6:35. We are on air right now with the youth radio children of the show. We're called ZDC. For the last part of our show, we wanted to have a pop culture segment, and we would like to pay a tribute to Nipsey Hussle and all the great work he was doing. Ron?
Hi. So today I'm going to be talking about the things that made him much more than a rapper. Because I know everyone says, oh, another rapper died, it's very sad. But no, I feel like it's very important for us to acknowledge the things Nipsey did for his community and also the things he advocated for to the youth and specifically African-American youth in his community. So now we have some audio of Nipsey himself speaking.
Just wanted to send some words of encouragement. Y'all stay focused, y'all keep working hard, believe in yourself, prove everybody that doubts y'all wrong, show up every day, stay pure, keep your heart pure. Stay motivated, stay inspired, show love to your people. From Nip Hussle.
It's just unfortunate. It's so unfortunate when you look at a guy who believed in what he believed in talked about how he wanted to give back to his own community, actually gave back to his community, and actually stayed in his community. There's not many who's done that. And to see his life taken away from him in his community by someone that come from his community, it's one of the most unfortunate events that's happened in American history. And I just feel for it. Being here, him being a friend of mine as well, you just don't, I still don't believe it. You still don't believe it because we always talk about, like, you know, when you become someone, you tap into that gift. This is what we've been talking about. You tap into that gift, and then you know what your gift is, and then you give back, and you continue to give back, and you continue to give back, and you continue to put on for where you come from, and to see it taken away by someone that didn't have the same drive, that didn't have the same ambition, that didn't have the same motivation, but come from the same place you come from. It's what we have to deal with in our own inner cities. You know, we go to school with these guys. We play Little League football and basketball with these guys.
So that was LeBron James speaking on Nipsey, as well as Nipsey himself at the beginning. And I think it's very important that we sort of talk about Nipsey as an individual first, and how cunning he was, and understanding sort of the manipulation that goes on through the industry, because I'm sure today you've heard some of the things that go on in the industry with masters and artists not having access to their masters, and it's sort of being a whole scheme of profit for the record label, not necessarily the individual. So, Johanna.
And if you want to join this call, please, if you want to join this discussion, please call at 202-588-0893. We actually have a caller right now that we would love to have on the air. Caller, you're on.
Yes, my name is Dave, and it's unfortunate about what happened to Brother Nipsey. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, the rap music and things like that, I didn't really know too much about the guy. I've heard of his name through, you know, being mentioned, but I never was, you know, a listener of his music or anything like that. But after his death, I started looking at some of his videos. And the things I saw, I was kind of disturbed by it. Because I saw one video, he was, you know, packaging up these drugs, and he was giving them to this young lady to go out in the street and sell. Then I'm looking at another one, there's these niggas this and these niggas that. And then when these brothers lose their life, it's unfortunate, but they losing their life according to the words they speak. And you can't have it both ways. If you're going to be a positive influence for the community, you must be positive in your words, positive in your action, and in your deeds. And so somewhere along the line, we're not getting that as a people. And we're selling out to these record companies. We putting these images out. We're signing a contract for ignorance. And then once we sign it, we become buffoons to the industry. And that's all I want.
We have a response.
I think there's two sides to it, and I understand what you're saying in terms of the seeming ignorance which is perpetuated within the music, but I think it's also important to take into account the environment that these people grew up in and them not having equitable resources that we have today to keep them out of those environments, as well as the things he's been doing to keep people out of those environments that he's talking about, the things he went through when he was younger. He actually was planning to start a STEM and space program within his community to get people outside of that mentality that, oh, I have to do this, I have to sell drugs to make it in the world, or I have to do these, what you said, disgusting things. I feel like it's important that we understand that he was trying to get the people out of that. And within his music, he was talking about the things he grew up in, his environment. Not that those are excusable things that happen, but I think it's important to take that into account.
Anaya?
I do agree with your statement about, you know, people who are supposed to be looked at as role models and leaders in the community should not, you know, also put out this ignorance in their music. But like Ron was saying, they were, you know, he was speaking his truth, and he did do things to overcome that. But at the end of the day, he was a good person, and sometimes, like, people do bad things that make mistakes because of the environment he grew up in, because of how he was raised, because of his culture, because of things like that. But I don't think it's necessarily right to call what he was putting out there in his music and in his videos ignorant, because I do think that was his story and his life and his culture.
Reality, yeah.
It depends how people take it.
And we can't ignore where he comes from. We have to understand that you can't just bloom into something. What he became, he worked to get there, and people from that community can't just snap their fingers. They don't have that privilege to snap their fingers and suddenly be in a better place. So I think that needs to be taken into account when talking about him. And I believe we have another caller.
Yes, we do have another caller. Welcome. You're on air.
Yes, hi, my name is Maggie, and I'm 64 years old. And I was just listening to what this gentleman said. Mr. Russell, I didn't know too much about him either. However, he is an artist. Artists, spoken word artists, poets, painters always paint or write from where they come from. Exactly. And to have someone to disparage his legacy, because this man left a legacy, something that many of us don't do.
Right.
You died by the sword or whatever. He didn't say that, but that's what he was trying to say. I think that's a disrespect to Nipsey Russell. I think that's a disrespect to our community as a whole. I think instead of people getting on to about, the music this, the music that, blah, 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 go out and volunteer, work with young men and women like I do in a organization that I belong to.
Right.
So that when you hear the music, you don't act on the music.
Right.
I came up on The Temptation. I also came up on White Line. Okay, but you have to have mentors and role models. Don't disparage your brother's name like that.
Right.
And say, he died because of what he did. No, he died maybe because of what we don't do.
Right.
Let's get out and help someone else.
Yeah. Right.
I agree.
All right. Thank you all, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for calling. I believe we have another caller.
Welcome.
Hi, that's been on my radio. My name is Karima, and I'm 28 years old, and I thank you all for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to, just comment and say that for me personally, I never listened to Nipsey a lot, but I always knew about his hustle, and I knew about his entrepreneurship, and I knew about the fact that he wanted people our age to really own our things and be entrepreneurs,
right,
and take our crafts and do things with it and be actionable. And that's what I remember him for. And I work in cryptocurrency, and I work in blockchain. And Nipsey Hussle is one of the only people who had a positive influence as far as celebrities, period, because other celebrities were just hopping on and just selling tokens, and it was a whole thing. But he was actually trying to preach something of what cryptocurrency could enable, and actually at his store he accepted cryptocurrency.
Right.
Exactly.
And
something he did was he didn't just sell and create merchandise for the now. He was setting up the future for not just himself, but his community, which is so important and sometimes is really overlooked by other artists.
Right. And I also think it's great that he envisioned his company. He said it was an immature idea, but he said he wanted it to be hip-hop, fashion, and tech combined. So he wanted to sort of disrupt the cycle of corporations and African Americans not having a place in that. He wanted to inject us directly in that with his marathon store, it being a technology, fashion, and hip-hop. So I think, that's great that he sort of left a legacy behind for us to pave our way into different fields. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah,
thank you.
We have one more caller that we'd like to bring on the air. Caller, you're welcomed.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, let me turn down my radio. Everyone pretty much spoke on kind of what I wanted to say, but I think where Nipsey differs from a lot of modern day, not even just rappers or hip hop artists, is that he came from this environment that he rapped about, he had that in his videos, but he created opportunities for his community, and job opportunities with his store, with everything he had going on. He was one of the people that in my mind did it right where you quote unquote, you make it out, but then you come back and you give the resources and the information and the knowledge that you gained on your way up to help other people in your community come up with you, because, there's enough for everybody to have what he had. And I think that was his biggest thing is, we can look nice, we can ride around in these nice cars, but we need to create generational wealth. And I think he was one of the only, artists that I feel like we're really speaking on those things, and we're really trying to help the Black community and really everyone to understand those concepts of, it's not about the gold chains, it's not about the cars you drive, but it's about, building and establishing something that will last way beyond you and way beyond your time. And he did that, and his thing was, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that concept is really important, especially for, young Black artists, entrepreneurs, just to understand that it's not all going to happen overnight, but if you keep working hard for it,
keep working and investing and play it smart and set an example for your
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I just want to say, like she said, it's also, a lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot, but most people that I was talking with after he passed away said that, they hadn't heard that much about what he had been doing and all this, and they really only found out who he was and all the activist work he had been doing after he passed away, right? And so, it's one thing to take that in and respect it, and it's another thing to actually act on it and take the lessons that he was teaching and now use them in your day-to-day life and all that. Ron?
Yeah, so now I don't think we're taking any more callers, but I'd like to talk about some of the things he did. And yeah, some of the... Okay. We can actually take two more callers briefly. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm on the air.
Yes.
All right.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Great.
How are you?
Good. So I was kind of moving around driving in my car, and I picked up on this conversation. It's a very interesting conversation.
Right.
That really deals with the art, the message, and the image. And as an African American, a man in this country, about to turn 59 years old, I can tell you about message, art, and what that impact can have.
Right. It's powerful, reflecting the real world and sort of...
And not only that, let me be crystal clear here. I'm talking about over generations.
Right.
How the message has changed in the African American community as it relates to what entertainment and what we call art, and how we are pushing now a new message, a different message, which, by the time some of our young people who are in this whole, hip-hop era and making money, and the messages that they put out, by the time they become rich and get money and somehow they want to change and try to do the good, they've already caused a tremendous amount of damage.
Agreed.
And I hate to interrupt you and rush you, but we have one more call and we still have to finish this segment. So if we have... Never mind. We just need...
Right. So I'll end it with this. I'll just end it with this. I just think that we have to be very careful about what we're calling art when the message is really having a damaging impact on the image of a community and people that has a history in this country of negative stereotypes.
Yes.
We really have to watch what we're saying about ourselves.
Right. Agreed.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling. So I'd like to sort of highlight some of the things he did. So he actually bought out the Crenshaw strip mall to create his marathon store, and he actually employed it entirely with people he knew, local people just in need. And also, I previously stated the STEM and space program he wanted to establish within the community. I think it's important to sort of understand what this means for the future and his legacy and what he did, because let's be honest here, not a lot of people were talking about what he was doing while he was doing what he did, and now I think it's in a way beautiful that everyone's acknowledging it, but I think it's important that we actually take this as an opportunity to continue his legacy. I think artists like Denzel Curry, speaking on being an independent artist and record labels, and how record labels sort of, in a way, use these artists and this culture as pawns for them to make money. And we see it today with just in general in our media, and I think that plays into a part of the glorification, because it's become marketable and it's become what can be the face of something profitable, like I was saying. And I think just continuing his legacy is very important, and understanding the things he did, him advocating for entrepreneurship and having true ownership of things in your community. And if you make it, give back to your community. Him with his marathon store, again, him wanting to empower the youth, and many other things. Does anyone want to?
No, I think that it's also, he should be used as someone to inspire other artists to go back to their community, back to bring up people who really brought them to where they were today, remembering who supported them, and really just make way for the future, because the future is scary and there's nothing we can do about it. But
yeah, and on to, I wanted to also highlight some of the things that our callers said when it comes to how they represent themselves, how rappers today represent themselves in their music videos and on social media and all that. And as we just go into the future, we need to pay more attention to what they are doing also outside of rapping, and we also need to remember when we do listen to those songs that this is actually what they're going through, and this isn't an Avengers movies to go to, and think of all the cool things, or quote cool things that they're doing. Like, no, this is actually the reality, and we need to also think of ways to get them out of this so that they can have more opportunities and to help them out.
Right. And I wanted to close this with a quote from one of his songs. Yeah, from one of his songs, Crenshaw and Slauson, A True Story. He said, "Labels used to treating rappers like a slave. People starving artists. Just be happy with your fame. Things changed. Now it's such a different game. All these people like myself is controlling everything. If you pay attention, see exactly what I mean. Screw the middleman." I said that in 2003.
Thank you.
Yes, that's perfect.
So now we will have a dedication by Nipsey Hussle.
Look, my end of this is dedication. This is anti-hesitation. It's a real in the celebration. It's a dime block declaration. 59th and 5th Ave, granny house with vanilla wafers. It's the remedy to separation. Tupac of my generation. Blue pill in the matrix. Red rose in the great pavement. Young black nigga trapped and he can't change it. Know he a genius, he just can't claim it. Cause they left him no platforms to explain it. He frustrated, so he get faded. But deep down inside, he know you can't fade him. How long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meet preparation? I need some real work and reparations, or I run up in your bank just for recreation. Dedication, hard work, plus patience. To some more of my sacrifice, I'm done waiting. Told you that I wasn't playing. Now you hear what I've been saying. Dedication. It's dedication. Look.
I spent my whole life thinking out the box. Boxing homies 3-on-1, got DP, but I ain't dropped. Chirp on me, here I come. Spin around the block, they blurked on me. Said I ran a stop sign, but that's a lie. I spent my whole life staring at the stage, playing Sega, daddy smoking Sherm, mama playing spades, catching vapors. Grandma said I get some Jordans for my grades, that's my baby. When she died, my heart broke 100 ways. I spent my whole life trying to make it, trying to chase it. The cycle of a black man divided, trying to break it. You take a lot, this shit, don't cry about it, just embrace it. Mine a setback for major comeback, that's my favorite. My and L said you do a song with Nip, K-Dot here better grip. I said here man first, you hear the words out his lips about flourishing from the streets to black businesses. Level 4 y'all living, giving to false imprisonment. Listen close, my nigga, it's bigger than deuces and foes. My son in this elementary, we close, my then get straight like that. I give you the game, go back to the turf and give it right back. For generations we've been dealt bad hands with bad plans. Prove your dedication by hopping out Grand Ams. I'm at the premiere, politicking with Top Nip and Snoop. I ain't clock watching the way we groove. Dedication. If it ain't congratulate, then I look like hey. If it ain't congratulate, then I look like what Nip say. Hold up.
Blah. This ain't entertainment. It's fucking on the slave shit. These soldiers and spirituals I swam against them waves with. Ended up on shore to their amazement. I hope the example I set's not contagious. Lock us behind gates but can't tame us. Used to be stay safe, now stay dangerous. Cause ain't no point playing defense. That's why I dove off the deep end without a life jacket. Couple mil, tour the world, all my life cracking. Cook the books, bring it back so there's no taxes. Royalties, publishing, plus our own masters. I'd be mad if I slave for some wages. As I was mapping this out, I hit the heights backwards. Hopping out the 85 and Reebok classes. Read a couple marathons just to get established. To make it happen, you got to have dedication. Hard work, plus patience. To some more of my sacrifice, I'm done waiting. Told you that I wasn't playing. Now you hear what I've been saying. Dedication. It's dedication.
We want to thank everyone for listening to our program. Thanks also to Sue Goodwin, Robin Smith, Vinnie Jack, and Katia Stitt. Thanks also to the ZDC crew, including Ricardo Cornegay, Lawrence Carter, and Sade Marie, for engineering and for the content contribution. Woo! Yes! Yeah. We hope that you all will tune in next week and follow us on Twitter at ZDC WPFW. Thank you. Up next is School of Thought. Peace. Also follow us on Instagram at ZDC WPFW. Enjoy.
Tell me money ain't a thing now. 30,000 feet above the world, right next to the wing. Too high to hear the birds sing now. All around the world and back again, it's finally happening. I'm lapping in this luxury by napping in the big house. Chilling with my homies on the west side. Bringing out my best side. I was on the road for like a quarter. I was in and out the border from London to Paris. Yes, it's very extraordinary. Running to the bus and the ferry. Should have seen the itinerary. Then we made it back home like, whoa. Tell me how you feeling, higher than the ceiling. I know I've been illin', probably wonder where I'm at. I've been chillin' while they grillin', yeah, I'm stillin' like I never left. They know I had to go, but then I brought it right back like, whoa. Do it like, whoa.